Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Deva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravidam Tvameva Sarvam Mahadeva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mahadeva Deva. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matra Rupena Sansita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shakti Rupena Sansita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Lakshmi Rupena Sanstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. That's a little chant to the mother. Full her grace. Hit the right button here. Am I still online or did I log myself off?
No, you're here.
You're here.
Great, good. So we are still in our discussion of samadhi, and we have people visiting tonight. So let me just see if we can catch people up on the main points. Samadhi, equality of mind, absolute quiescence of mind. Here we're primarily talking about nirvikalpa samadhi. Nis means without, vikalpa means some perturbation, some movement. So the absolute quiescence of mind when it has stopped. Last thought has thoughted before the next thought starts thoughting. And the scriptures define it as when the distinction between the knower, knowing, and known has gone. Oh, that's easy, Jim. That happens to me every night, deep sleep. True. But actually the mind is still covered by tamas. It's still covered by avarana shakti. Because when the mind returns in the morning, what's my knowledge? I don't know. I know nothing. Does not reveal anything. Then the terms this scripture has used have been prakasha, literally light, but the illuminating quality of awareness, and vimarsha, deliberation. So I cognize stuff and then I think about it. That's what I do. I think about it. That's my experience of the world. I see the table. Oh, there's a table. How do I know it's a table? Because I've got memories, etc. It's a rosewood table. Oh, I like rosewood tables. I prefer them to metal or glass or something like that. We think about stuff. Vimarsha, deliberation. Here the text is saying when we have prakasha, pure awareness, without the vimarsha, that's samadhi. In simpler terms, whenever the mind is free from thoughts. Whether you have the illumination of the world or not. Because what have we been thundering chapter after chapter? Well, the world's just illusory. It's just imagination anyway. Then we have the discussion of what we call fleeting or momentary samadhis. And the Tattva has said actually people experience momentary or fleeting samadhis all the time. My particular generation, we used to call it spacing out. You're not thinking, but your mind just stops. Somebody's talking to you. Jim, pay attention. What did you say? What did you say? Those are moments of samadhi. But if we don't have paroksha jnana, stuff we were talking about beforehand, indirect knowledge, if we haven't studied scripture, we haven't heard the teaching from the Guru, when the mind stops, and our attention isn't introverted, we're not noticing it. When the mind comes back, it does nothing to free us. The example I use is it's rush hour on the BART train coming home from work and see people holding onto the handhold and they're so tired their mind just stops. When the mind comes back, what do they realize? Back of BART seat. Because the attention continues to be extroverted. They didn't even notice that their mind stopped, and it does nothing to free them. So we need not only paroksha jnana, indirect knowledge, we need aparoksha jnana, direct experience. So we have these sacred moments. The mind gets tuned up. And either the teacher or the scripture says, who is it who notices the thoughts and the space between the thoughts? Or frequently I'll say, now listen to the traffic. Your mind very quiet. Who hears it? What hears it? See, there's nothing there. Yet that no thingness shines as a hum. As chit, pure awareness. Vast, shunyata, empty, but also purna. It's full of bhava, being. So, what happens? Some people have what's called a jada samadhi. Jada means inert. This is the samadhi of some of the Raja yogis. So you do the bandhas and your mind stops for a moment. But if you still have vasana, your experience will be, oh, I got so high. I saw nothing. It's inert. It does not reveal the ultimate truth. And the secret of this we find, I think, the most clearly elucidated place is in Shankara's Vivekachudamani. I think it's one of the most important verses, verse 267. Shankara says, even after realization of the truth, meaning I've had some of these moments, maybe some fleeting samadhis, get tuned up in class or in my meditation. I get the sense, oh, there's no one there. Yes, I get it. Shankara says, even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, karta bhokta, which is the cause for rebirth. Here it doesn't mean, oh, I have to come back in another incarnation. It means I get re-identified. Moving through life, detached, very clear. Aham Brahmasmi, I'm the witness. This is all just Leela. And then something goes boing and pushes my button. We were talking about that beforehand. Frequently it will happen with your family. You know why it's difficult to do your yoga around your family? Why they push your buttons? It's because they installed them. How they got there. But it can be around work, it can be a loss, it can be a failure, it can be all sorts of things. Where that idea that I am the doer and the bhokta means enjoyer, more subtly experiencer. Here in yoga, we enjoy miserable things too. Shankara says, even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that I am the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause of rebirth. What am I supposed to do about it? This needs to be conscientiously rooted out through steady and continuous identification with the self. Don't settle for a momentary experience. Oh yeah, I went on a Vipassana retreat. I saw my essential nature, I'm done. You want to be, as Gita calls it, sthita prajna, person of steady wisdom. Well, how do I do that, Jim? Shankara goes on to say, it is the annihilation of the vasanas here and now that is considered liberation by the wise. How do I know vasana is still operative? Remember a vasana. Uma, do you know what a vasana is? Is this a term you know? Yeah. Vasana has two powers. First power, avarana shakti, veiling power. I know my mind is covered by vasana when I think I'm a person. I have the non-apprehension of myself as Brahman. Then there's Vikshepa Shakti. Three things. pop up all at once. The Buddhists call this dependent origination. There is jiva bhavana, I think I'm a person. There's a world of name and form separate from me, it's out there. And it's joy-giving and misery-producing. Third element, kartavya, obligatory actions. I must go from point A to point B in order to be happy. Struggle, 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 struggle. I'll be happy when, it'll be better if. And it only takes one of two forms. I either need to fix the world. If my boss would do this, that, and the other thing. If my children would do this, that, and the other thing. If the government would do this, that, and the other thing. Out there. Or I try to fix myself. If I were taller, if I were skinnier, if I were smarter, if I didn't make mistakes at work. Only one of those two things. I either need to fix the world or I need to fix it to protect me. That's the mind. That's samsara. That's karma chakra. That's the problem. That's it. Just those three things. All the rest of the structure of ego is based on those three ideas. And the cause of it, vasana. How do I know that my mind is under the influence of vasana? Non-apprehension of myself as Brahman. And then I think I'm a person. Like Jim, I have a problem. Is that clear? What do? When I notice that I'm identified, rather than endeavoring to resolve the struggle of ego, quit the job, get rid of the boyfriend or girlfriend, tell the children to go to their room. Do you tell him to go to his room anymore?
He's in his room only.
No, drop the identification. Koham, who am I? Oh, that's right. Do not deny. Remember who you are. Over and over and over. Yoga Sutra boils it down to two practices: vairagya, abhyasa, renunciation, and practice. Not just sitting in meditation, but the practice of letting go of attachment and identification as I'm moving through the world. So the yogi wants to pay attention to the heart. It is a spiritual axiom that if I am disturbed, if I am upset, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the attachment. I'm the one with the expectation. I'm the one with the false identification. Listen carefully. That does not mean the other person is right and I'm wrong. The world and its people are oftentimes quite wrong. But my reaction is a different subject. You see that distinction? You may have an abusive boss. may be very true. He's abusive. But if I'm angry, if I'm hurt, if I'm home, guess who has the problem? I do. And it's axiomatic. It's one of the most powerful things a yogi can take up. If she grasps nothing out there has the power to upset me. It's just Leela. I'm upset. I'm the one with the dosha. Now, the good news is I can do something about it then. If your boss is a jerk, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Can't change him. I don't have to be upset by it. Even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth. This needs to be conscientiously rooted out through steady and continuous identification with the self. The annihilation of the vasanas here and now is considered moksha, liberation. Any thoughts on this? Any questions? Yes?
No, no.
All right. What verse are we on? Does anybody know?
We're at the start of page 301, 73, 74.
Okay, page 301, shloka 73, 74. Will you help us out, Ganesh?
Chitre vimrishte yadvattu shuddha bhittirhi samsthita sampadanam shuddha bhittau chitra sammashtirevahi evam vikalpasya pohe nirvikalpam manasvatah Nirvikalpatma sampattihi vikalpatyaga evahi. As the pure screen alone remains when the picture drawn on it is wiped off. And accomplishing a pure screen is only wiping off the picture. Thus, on the removal of thought constructs, the mind is nirvikalpa, or free from thought constructs by itself. The accomplishment of the nature of nirvikalpa is only the giving up of thought constructs.
Yes. So nirvikalpa is not something to be gained. Nirvikalpa is to be done by the giving up of the mind. Now, this is very subtle. If you want to just cut to the chase, the yogi quits believing her mind. I cannot think a real thought. We unknown. Now, Shrunuhu, listen carefully. When we teach the subject of nirvikalpa, samadhi, we always teach two definitions. One, what we've been talking about, this removal of the vikalpa, this removal of the vimarsha, the stopping of the mind, the thoughting. But there's another definition which we also teach. If the definition of nirvikalpa is where the distinction between knower, knowing, and known is gone, we know the world through the triple factor. I, Jim, through seeing, know the table. I, Jim, through hearing, know the traffic. I, through manas, the mind of feelings. I, through buddhi, know thoughts. Are you you?
Yes.
How do you know it?
Through ears, through nose, through.
Oh, that's your
eyes.
body.
Huh? But God is looking through us.
Go to your direct experience. Are you you?
Huh?
Are you you? Who sees the phone? You do.
Yes. You do is not me.
Don't talk about me. Go to you. How do you know you are you?
Because of this body, I know.
No. No. You do not hear, see, taste, touch, or smell yourself.
Yes.
You do not emote yourself. You do not think yourself. You are just you. The self is swayambhu, self-evident. Swayam Jyoti, self-luminous. The self is its own means of knowledge. So in fact, the self is the knower, the means of knowledge, and that which is known, it's never known as an object. As Shankara sings in Nirvana-Shatakam, Aham nirvikalpo, I am nirvikalpa. So nirvikalpa is another name for the self. And if the world is all imagination, pratibimba, like a reflection, mithya, illusion, vaitatya, what Gaudapada calls it, false. Then I am nirvikalpa all the time. Always teach these two definitions of nirvikalpa. One is the mind state of no mind. But the deeper teaching, nirvikalpa is another name for yourself. Next verse.
नातोऽधिकं किञ्चिदस्ति पदं प्राप्यं हि पावनम् अत्र मुह्यन्ति विबुधा अभिमायाम् अहित्वतः. There is indeed no sacred position or holy state, whatever. There is indeed no sacred position or holy state, whatever, greater than this that is attainable. In this matter, even learned men are perplexed on account of the might of Maya, the elusive power of God.
So, what we want to be able to understand. What is it that knows the self? Remember, this whole discussion started with the female ascetic talking with Ashtavakra, who's in the court of King Janaka. How is it that the mind cannot go there? How is it that it can be known and yet the scriptures say it is not knowable? How is it both knowable and not knowable? So this is the process. Who intends renunciation? What do we need to renounce? The mind. Giving up attachment and identification. At an auspicious moment, mind's tuned up. Who are you? The attention is introverted, you get these flashes. Oh, there's nothing there. There's no person. It's just Chidakash, the space of consciousness. And the subtle intellect, technically, the mind, when it returns, it has the term we had, pratyabhinyana, recognition. The subtle intellect goes, oh, I get it. There's nothing there. Mind you, the moment of realization is not, oh, I am a Mahatma. I'm a great Muni, touch my feet. We're still deluded. Moment of realization is, how could I have been such a fool and thought I was a person? So stupid. I've always been Brahman. And so is everybody else, whether the mind knows it or not. Now, there is an academic tension in the school of Advaita Vedanta, whether or not Nirvikalpa Samadhi is necessary for firm, steady realization. Some scholars say no. All I know, Swamiji taught the value of it. Shankara spends quite a bit of time talking about in Vivekachudana. This text extols reason being, even though the mind may have an intellectual understanding, doesn't seem to let go of this jiva bhavana. I think I'm a person. I think I'm my body. Without samadhi. But there are two schools of thought. Any thoughts on this before we move on?
How do we let go of this attachment with the body?
The basic meditation that we're given is called Tripura Viveka. Real renunciation always comes as the fruit of insight. And Tripura Viveka is the discrimination between the seer and the seen, the subject and the object, the self and the not self. So we start with the external world. So do you see the glass over there?
Yeah.
Are you a glass?
No.
No. You're the one who sees the glass. Can you feel the breeze of the fan on your skin?
Yes.
You're not the breeze. You're the knower of the breeze. We can go through all the 5 outer senses that way. Then we come to the body itself. When you were a little girl, you had a little tiny body. And you went through adolescence, become a teenager, the body changed. Then you became an adult, the body changed again. Some of us are in our golden years, the body has changed again. But have you not been the knower of the changes in the body?
Yes.
You are not your body. You are the knower of your body. Take a deep breath and feel the breath in the body. Do you not have a subject-object relationship? I know the breath in the body.
Yes.
You are not the body.
I'm not the body.
And you keep working on that. And we
But
go.
still, we keep on having attachment. We are always thinking about how to be healthy, how to eat healthy.
Well, not all people do.
Huh?
You want to think of your body like a car. Do you drive when you're in India? Do you have a
I
car?
don't drive. I don't drive.
Did you used to drive when you were younger?
I was driving.
Yeah. So when you have a car, you have the car washed. You make sure that the oil gets changed.
Yes.
You go to the gas station, have them put petrol in the tank. When the tires are worn out, you have the tires repaired. But you're not a car.
But still,
You could.
we keep on thinking that I am a car.
Well, that's the attachment. So the practice is this Atma Anatma Vichara, the discrimination between the self and the not self. And then we get it subtler. We go to the feelings. I'm not my feelings either. Sometimes I feel joy, sometimes I feel sorrow, etc. But I know these feelings and my thoughts. Sometimes I have virtuous thoughts, sometimes I have vicious thoughts, but I'm not my thoughts. I am the knower. We practice this through the day and in my meditation seat. Vinayak, do you have a copy of Viveka Chudamani at home?
We do.
Let her read it. I think it's absolutely the best. This is a Shankara text. And it's I think one of the greatest spiritual books ever written. It takes you from the beginning up to the most subtle stuff. Now what we're dealing with tonight, very advanced stuff. But most of Viveka Chudamani, the crest jewel of Viveka, discrimination, gives us meditation after meditation about how to discriminate between the self and the bija vasana, the seed attachment, is deho vasana, attachment to the body. It is not accomplished by flesh hating. You see yogis who sleep on beds of nails and stick nails through their flesh. Doesn't do any good. You detach from the body from inside. Paying attention. The body is an object of awareness. Your finger doesn't see your thumb. Your nose doesn't see your toes. You are aware of it all. What is my nature? Sat Chit Ananda. I am, I exist. Chit. I shine as awareness. Not some self out there, not God out there, but your very experience of I. You don't get a new self. My problem is I've superimposed onto that direct experience all sorts of ignorant ideas. This is called adhyasa, superimposition. These are great questions. Is this useful?
Yes.
She's a yogi. All right, next verse.
Subuddhanam kshanenaiva padametadhi lakshitam tridhadhikarino brahman uttama dhamma madhyama. For the enlightened, this state is surely perceived merely in a moment. Brahmana, persons fit for this knowledge are in three ways: the highest, the middling, the lowest.
Oh, I love this section. So, listen carefully. Enlightenment is sudden and it's immediate. You don't get more and more enlightened. You either see who you are, you know. Now, those of you who've taken some of my more basic courses have heard me use this metaphor. I like to cook. So if you get a tomato, big, ripe, red tomato, and you have a knife that's dull, what happens if you try to slice the tomato with a dull knife? It goes squish. So there's a preparatory procedure. I have to sharpen the knife. So I have a little electric knife sharpener. So with us, the slicing is like the sudden insight of my self-nature. The knife sharpening the wonder sword of discrimination, is asana, pranayama, yamas and niyamas, the adhikari becoming a fit student, puja, all these various practices that we do, which have as their goal purifying the mind. Where we get into trouble is, okay, here's my tomato. Nice tomato. Sharpening the knife. tomato isn't sliced. Still not sliced. What have I done? I've confused the preparation with the act of slicing. So all these various practices help us achieve a sattvic mind. Then what do I do with that sattvic mind? Atma vichara. Investigate myself. Now, one of the problems some people have is they externalize the self. Well, what do you think about the self? Well, this is what I think about the self. But what do you think about the self? As if the self is something out there that does nothing to free us. That's the path of the philosopher. The yogi must start with her direct experience. I'll say, who sees the phone? Or I'll hold up the book. Who sees the book? I do. That's yourself. Our job is to investigate that direct experience. You will not get another self. But my problem is, because I've never thoroughly investigated that, I have all these false ideas about myself. Like I think I'm my body. I'm not. Subject object. If it has a beginning and an end, if it occurs in time and space, if it has qualities or characteristics, if it's confined to the waking, dream, or deep sleep state, and most importantly, if it can be known as an object of awareness, that's anatman, not self. Who am I? I am that by which everything is known, which is nirupam, without a form. Vigunaihi, beyond the books. Achintyans, beyond all thought. Nirmalam, that has no taint, no dirt. Achalam, it never moves. Don't believe me. Don't believe the scripture. In your meditation, get your mind as quiet as you can. And then have this radical reversal of the attentive faculty. And see if you can notice, who are you? Atma vichara. Direct investigation into the self. Not reading a book. Not listening to religion. The mind as quiet as you can make it. The attentive faculty turned inward flow of attention. Investigate. Who are you? Is that useful?
Yes.
Very good questions. All right, help us out with the next one, please, Ganesh.
Uttama Sakritadesh kale buddhyanti tatpadam vicharo dhyanamapi cha kritikala samam bhavet uttamanam nahi kleshah praptau tasya padasya hi. The highest ones understand that state at the time of instruction once. Investigation and also meditation would occur simultaneously with the time of hearing the teaching. For the highest ones, there is surely no trouble in the attainment of that state.
So if the student is very pure, comes in without a lot of karmic baggage, there with the teacher, they've developed this wonderful capacity to tune to the mind of the teacher. Swamiji used to say, meet me there. And then if the student's mind is tuned up, the teacher will take them through the process, just like we did. The student is ripe, be a little dust. Vijnanam, vijnanam happens at the same time. Understanding, direct experience. This is why Jnana Yoga, the methodology that we have, is also called a Shabda Pramana. Shabda means sound or words. It doesn't mean I'm going to give you, here's a secret mantra which is going to enlighten you. Doesn't mean that. It means we tune up your mind. How? Through the scripture. And then we tell you what you're experiencing while you're experiencing. And if it's been an auspicious moment, you'll get the Pratya Vijnana, recognition. The mind still has too much tamas and rajas. Oh, I don't know whether I get it, Jim. Do you think I ought to become a vegetarian? No blame. More tamas. And the beautiful thing about Vedanta, it's actually incredibly repetitive. Just keep coming. And keep doing your viveka and your vairagya. Practice the shamadhi guna, qualities of shama, etc. Meditate, meditate, meditate. Then when it comes around again, we go, oh, of course, I wonder why I have so much trouble with that. So the highest students, they receive the knowledge as it's given them by the teacher. Not me. Going on.
Aham pura nidaghasya ratrau jyotsna sumundite priyaya samparishpakto vikasaddha tikangane paradhyarshyanasino madirama taghurnitah ashrosham khe siddhagana vachanam madhupeshalam advaita tattva ashritam. Advaita tatpashritam vai tatkale hyavidam padam. Formerly, during a night of summer in the courtyard of a blooming garden adorned by moonlight, I, seated on the finest couch, closely embraced by my beloved wife, and shaking or unsteady on account of intoxication produced by spirituous liquor, heard in the sky the sweet and soft words of a group of perfected sages or siddhas, referring to the non dual true principle, and I indeed experienced that state at that time.
So I love this part of the story. We have all sorts of various stories in the tradition of the dialogue between Janaka and Ashtavakra, and many of them go about the enlightenment of King Janaka. This is one of the funniest. So there's King Janaka. He's at a party and he's loaded, he's drunk, and he's smooching one of his wives. And while he's doing all this, celestial sages bring him the truth. Now, this is literature. A far more real example is our dear hero, my wonderful, wonderful Ravana Maharshi. So he's at school. I think he was, 16? And he gets the news that one of his schoolmates has died. He's terribly upset. And he goes home and he decides to inquire, who dies? Who am I? He lies down on the floor. And he goes through the same kind of subject-object discrimination that you and I went through. And he goes directly into smoke. His entire sadhana lasted half an hour. It's very pure. He leaves home, goes to the little village. Am I pronouncing it right? Tiruvannamalai.
Mhm.
And he goes and he lives in silence in the crypt underneath the temple for 11 years. Young boy. People weren't sure whether or not he was mentally addled or a saint. They just didn't know. It's a period called seeming tapas, where he was just burning out all the remnants. Didn't speak for 11 years. But his sadhana is half an hour. So he is the first class of students. Janaka says he was too. Going on, next verse.
Vijñātam tadvicārena dhyanenapi tadaiva hi evam ardhamuhurtena jñātva tatpavanam padam muhurtam abhavam bhuya tatsamahitamaspamanasah paramanandavarashi Parimagno Hyasheshatah. That was known by investigation and also by meditation at that time alone. Thus, having known that holy state in half a muhurta or 24 minutes, I remained with my mind absorbed in that state again for a muhurta or 48 minutes and was completely immersed in an ocean of very great bliss.
So he has the deep insight, as he's taught the truth by the celestial sages, goes into samadhi for half an hour, he comes out, he says, oh my gosh. He goes back into samadhi for 48 minutes. Immersed in the bliss of his self nature. What happens next? Going on.
Athaspritim samasadya vicharaparamo bhavam ahodbhutapadam hyeta danan ahodbhutapadam hyetad anandamritanirбharam. Then obtaining the recollection of that state, I was solely engaged in investigation. Ah, this is indeed a wonderful state, filled with the nectar of bliss.
So, what has he realized? Notice it says the recollection. His mind comes back and he reflects on what's happened to him. So again, what you and I were talking about before class, self-realization gives us two things. First, it frees us from existential fear. When I know I am not a body, I am Nitya Ananda, infinite and eternal bliss. Fear goes away. Secondly, now I know where happiness is. Happiness is the mind absorbed in the self. Now, the person in ignorance experiences this just momentarily. When desire and the object of desire become one for a brief moment, the craving ceases. I have what I want. Problem is, it's very temporary. And if I think the object of the senses is what had given me the bliss, then I get attached to it. And I experience it every night, deep sleep. Everybody universally enjoys a deep sleep. You especially enjoy it if your life is problematic. Oh, I slept so well last night. Oh God, now I have to go back to work and face all those awful people. How many of you had that experience? Leave me alone, I want to go back to bed. Why? Because what is deep sleep? The mind folded up into pure ignorance. There's no vimarsha, the word we've used here, none of that deliberation. So the yogi who is master of samadhi does not let the mind extrovert into the objects in its compulsory, tyrannizing way that it used to. Fool, where's my little rock? Desires the object. When desire and object of desire become one, oh, that's where the bliss is. And then you start chasing that object. The yogi, an object of desire comes along. Nice object. I desire that, simply the force of the past maturing. I don't renunciate. I can take it or leave it. Then go dance with the object. Then when desire and object of desire become one. Oh, that stopped my mind. Krishna. There's no delusion that the object has inherent knowing this through direct experience. It's revealed in samadhi. The mind will never attach to the world in the same way. Even if your samadhi is tenuous, the same passions that drove you towards the people and the objects and the situations of the world drive you until you are, as Gita calls it, sthita, personal steadiness. Next verse.
Apurvamasadhitam me bhuyastad samvishamyaham naitasya leshamatram syad indradi sukhamapyalam. Something quite new or extraordinary has been accomplished by me. I should enter that state again. Surely even the delight of Indra, the chief of gods, and the like cannot be a mere particle of this delight.
So we call the self Ananda, bliss absolute, because when the mind is absorbed in the self, we have many names for this. My favorite is Atmaramana. Ramaramati means to revel. So our friend Ramana Maharshi, what does Ramana mean? He who revels. So because the self is bliss absolute, when the mind revels in the self, it becomes blissful. Brahmananda rasa. Juice. Bliss. This is why in the Hebrew scripture, Jesus is once asked, what's the greatest of the commandments? And the answer is love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. Why? Because when the mind can revel in the self, the world falls away. Becomes trinkets and baubles. It's like a thimble full of water added to the ocean's worldly experience. Victory. Trinkets and baubles. And there's no effort. It's just obvious. It's just obvious. All right, we'll stop here. What verse are we on next time?
85.
All right, so we're still talking about the experience of self-realization of King Janaka as the example of the most subtle or the highest class of aspirants. And then to remind you that we will not meet again until, is it the 6th of January? The 5th? What is it?
6th.
The 6th, January 6th. And we'll take up on verse 85 there. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. And what was Ramana Maharshi's great practice that he gave us? So simple, so direct. Kohak. The thought arises, to whom did this occur? To me. Who am I? The feeling happens, to whom did this feeling occur? To me. Who am I? Keep turning the attention back on the subject over and over. All right. Thank you all.